Do you want to live abroad and escape the cold Canadian winters that seem to last for 6 months out of the year? Well, as a digital nomad from Canada, for the past few years, I've been living and traveling abroad from Mexico, Asia, and now South America. And right now, I'm currently in Medellin, Colombia. And one of the main ways that I'm able to do this is by living off of the income from my investments. And so in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I manage and invest my own money so that you can learn how to travel and live abroad too. So in terms of my stock investments, I use two main strategies to be able to live abroad. The first being a goal-based passive investing strategy. This is where you create a customized stock investment portfolio for each of your financial goals. And each portfolio will consist of about 5 to 6 different ETFs. And there are 3 main benefits to the strategy. The first is that a passive investing strategy is the easiest investing strategy to learn. You see, investing is a skill just like swimming. You can either be a beginner, intermediate, or an expert. Now, a mistake that a lot of people make is that they want to skip being a beginner investor and go straight into becoming an expert investor, which is the equivalent of trying to become an Olympic swimmer when you've never swam before. In contrast, a passive investing strategy is the easiest investing strategy to get started with, where I teach my clients how to implement a passive investing strategy on less than 1 hour per month, where they're able to get about an 8 to 10% rate of return per year. And then once you've mastered passive investing, this is when you can allocate more time and energy to learn higher level investing strategies. But you see, it's a step-by-step process, and if you try to skip steps, you're gonna end up losing a lot of money. Second benefit of a goal-based passive investing strategy is that your money is diversified. You see, if you invest in just one stock and that company goes bankrupt, you're literally losing all of your money. But with a passive investing strategy, we're investing in one financial product called an exchange-traded fund. And an ETF will track all of the top stocks in either a certain industry or country. For example, the ETF VOO tracks the S&P 500, which is the index of the top 500 largest companies in the US. And so if one of those 500 companies goes bankrupt, that actually doesn't really matter to you because it's just going to be replaced by the next largest company. And this is extremely important, especially with the rise of AI and technology. You see, over the past decade, about half of the companies in the S&P 500 have been completely replaced. And so in the next 10, 20, or 30 years, we don't really know which companies are still going to exist. And so instead of putting all of your eggs in one basket, you want to put your eggs in all of the top baskets. And the last benefit of a goal-based passive investing strategy is that it gives you the highest return for your time and effort. For example, if it takes 1 hour to make $1,000 versus 10 hours to make $5,000, you much rather make $1,000 in 1 hour because you're making more money per hour. And so right now, my passive investment portfolio is about $100,000 to $150,000 with an average rate of return of about 8% per year with an average yield of about 4%. This means my investment portfolio grows about $8,000 to $12,000 per year and gives me an annual dividend of about $4,000 to $8,000 per year. And the best part is, I don't have to do much research or constantly watch market trends. I've already built my passive investment portfolio for each of my financial goals. And so every month, I just have to invest in the portfolio. And so every year, I'm only spending a few hours in order to manage my passive investments, and yet I'm making thousands of dollars each year. And so if you want to learn how to implement a goal-based passive investing strategy for your specific financial situation, I created a whole investing playlist on my YouTube channel to help you do this. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. Now, as you can see, my passive investments don't nearly generate enough cash flow for me to live off of. And so this is why I use another investing strategy called stock options trading. A stock option is where you go into a contract to either buy or sell 100 shares of a stock. And in return for going into this contract, you're going to receive a commission. And there are 2 main types of stock option contracts. The first type of option is called a put option. This is where you go into a contract to buy 100 shares of a stock. So for example, let's say Apple is $100 per share. You would go into a put option contract to buy 100 shares of Apple, only if Apple drops to $90 per share by the end of the month. And in return, you would receive a commission of $200. And so by the end of the month, 2 scenarios can happen. Scenario A is that Apple's share price is greater than $90 per share. And so in this case, nothing would happen and you would still receive the $200 commission. Scenario B is where Apple's share price is less than $90 per share. And so in this case, you would be forced to buy 100 shares of Apple at $90 and you would still receive the commission. Now, if scenario A happens, you can just continue going into another put option contract and receiving commissions. But let's say scenario B happens. Well, in this case, you would have to buy 100 100 shares of Apple. Now, once we own 100 shares of Apple, now we can go into the second type of stock options contract, also known as a call option. For example, let's say a few months go by and Apple's share price now recovers back to $100 per share. Now we can go into a call option to sell Apple only if Apple's share price increases to $110 per share by the end of the month. And in return, we would receive a commission of $200. And so once again, two scenarios can happen. Scenario A is Apple's share price is less than $110 per share. And so nothing would happen and you would receive a commission. Scenario B is that Apple's share price is now greater than $110 per share. And so in this case, you would be forced to sell 100 shares of Apple and you would still receive the $200 commission. And so if scenario A, we can just continue doing this and receiving commissions. And so let's say scenario B happens. And so because we initially bought Apple at $90 per share, but we sold them for $110 per share, and we made about $400 in commissions, we just made a total of $2,400. And so there are three main benefits to this strategy. The first being is that you're always able to buy low and sell high. You see, the golden rule of investing is that you always want to buy low, sell high, not the opposite. And so if you're always setting the lowest price to buy using the put option, while setting the highest price to sell using the call option, this is where you're guaranteed to always buy low, sell high. Another benefit of stock options is that it gives you a win-win situation. In put options, the worst case scenario, you have to buy 100 shares of the stock at a low price. And if not, you just receive a commission. With call options, the worst case scenario is that you have to sell the stock at a high price, or you just continue receiving the commissions. Either scenario is fine. Now, of course, you have to make sure that you're going into the right stock option contracts on the right stocks. But if you do it properly, you're guaranteed to win. And the last benefit of stock options trading is that it allows you to generate monthly cash flow through the commissions. Typically, I'm able to get about a 2 to 4% rate of return per month from stock options trading. And so because I typically invest $100,000 through stock options, I'm able to make about $2,000 to $4,000 per month. And this is one of the main ways that I'm able to live abroad from my investments. But something that you have to keep in mind are the transaction fees each time you want to do a put or call option. And so these fees can often eat into your returns. And that's the reason why I'm so excited to share the sponsor of this video, which has some of the lowest stock options trading fees. Moomoo is an online brokerage with over 27 million global users, and they've won multiple awards as one of the best online brokerages on the market. And I specifically like Moomoo because of its extremely low stock option trading fees. With Moomoo and for all US stock option contracts, you'll only be paying about 65 cents per contract and less than 1 cent per Canadian contract. And if we compare this to other stockbrokers like Wealthsimple, Questrade, RBC, or TD, Moomoo is a lot more cost efficient. For example, let's say in 1 year, we go into 100 stock option contracts. This is a cost that you'll be paying per broker. And so as you can see with Moomoo, you're going to be saving a lot of money. Not to mention Moomoo also has some of the lowest currency conversion fees, where to exchange money from Canadian dollars to USD, you'll only be paying a flat fee of $2 plus 0.09%. And if we compare this to other brokers, you'll be saving a lot of money with Moomoo. For example, let's say you're trying to convert $100,000 from Canadian dollars to USD. With Moomoo, you'll only be paying $92. While with Wealthsimple, RBC, or TD, you'll be paying about $1,500. And so you're essentially saving $1,400 right away. With Moomoo, you can also hold money in USD within your TFSA or RSP, which means you only have to pay a one-time currency conversion fee instead of having to convert your money each time you want to buy or sell a stock. And right now, Moomoo has some really great sign-up bonuses where you can get $300 when you deposit $5,000 or more, and over $2,000 in commission rebates. And so to sign up and get these bonuses, I'll leave my referral link in the description below. But if you're paying attention, with my passive investments and stock options trading, I'm only able to make about $2,500 per month, which is honestly not a lot of money to live off of. But here's the thing, when you live abroad, you actually don't need that much money to live comfortably. Now, I'm from Toronto, so my expectations of cost of living is kind of skewed. You see, back in Toronto, if I wanted to rent a 1-bedroom condo, I'd be paying at least $2,500 per month. But while living abroad, I can often cut my living costs in half. For example, right now I'm spending about $1,000 to $1,500 per month on rent, and I could probably get this amount even lower if I sign more long-term leases. For example, one of my friends is renting a place here in Medellin for only about $800 per month. And so in general, over the past few years that I've been living abroad, I typically spend about $3,000 to $4,000 each month. And this is the benefit of geographic arbitrage, which is making money in a higher currency, but living in a country with a much lower cost of living. But if you've been paying attention, you might have realized that my living costs are still higher than the income that I'm making from my investments. And so what's happening here? And so here's the thing. You see, I'm a pretty young guy, and my goal right now isn't to live off of my investments. I run a multiple six-figure education business where I help young professionals in Canada learn how to retire early in their 40s and 50s. And I actually love what I do. You see, the reason why I first studied accounting and finance in university wasn't because I loved numbers. It was because I constantly saw my parents fight and struggle about money, where we almost lost the house that we lived in. And so I know how it feels to be stressed and confused when it comes to money. And so when I'm able to help people avoid the mistakes my parents made and learn how to have control over their money and their lives, this brings me so much joy. And so although I could probably find somewhere in the world to live under $2,500 per month, that's simply something that I don't really want to do. I think there's a misconception about what early retirement means. A lot of people think that to retire early, you have to deprive yourself and save as much money as possible. But to me, early retirement doesn't mean quitting my job and doing nothing all day. To me, early retirement means having the choice to quit my job and do nothing all day. But if I want to keep working, I can. And so right now, as I still love to work, any additional expenses is just covered by my business. But keep in mind, how I manage and invest my investments is very tailored to my specific financial situation and goals. For example, right now, I have some clients right now who are preparing and are already in retirement, where they don't have another source of income, and so they're completely relying on the income from their investments. And so in this case, we would be optimizing their investments to generate income, which is very different from my current investing strategy, where I don't necessarily need the income from my investments. And so in this case, I could optimize my investments for growth. And then in the future, when I want to work less and retire early, then that's when I could optimize my investments for income. And this is why it's so important for you to learn how to structure and invest your own money to support your lifestyle. And so this is how I currently manage my investments and how I'm able to live and travel abroad. And the key lesson is that you have to be very clear as to what sort of life do you want to have and how do you use your finances and investments to support your lifestyle. This is an essential life skill that literally everyone needs to learn, because if you don't, your finances controls your life. Remember, when you have control over your money, you have control over your life. And so if you want to learn how to actually manage and invest your own money, but you just don't know where to start, then watch this video next.